Okay, so very big welcome. And yeah, we've still been focusing quite a lot on grounding, but also maybe moving into the turning towards our experience and whatever's arising. And yes, as Paramananda flagged up, but this is the point where it may start beginning to bite or us finding a bit of resistance and just encouraging us to see if we can turn towards it rather than get into all of that resistance. Just allow ourselves to be with whatever's arising. And yeah, we talk quite a lot about trying to develop a kinder internal voice that's kind and supportive, as opposed to the inner critic which we may have and maybe more used to. So it was very much a day focused on kindness and a lot around the heart. So the meditations he was leading were very much around the heart. But very much also that sense of being aware of our, well, he didn't use the word, but I would say Vedana response to our experience, that there's that tendency to either want to push away or deny experience that we find unpleasant, or wanting to hold on to, cling, appropriate the experiences that we find pleasant. I'm very much talking about how the ego, our ego consciousness does that a lot, appropriates our experience. So just seeing if we can have a little bit of a letting go of that and a little bit more just opening to whatever is there, and maybe not just responding to what's happening in our practice, thinking about it or analysing it, and not just the physical sensations, but also now bringing in the heart. And of course you can't separate any of them, they're all there all together, and they all interlink and they all support each other. Because obviously the heart is part of our body, very central part of our body. And yeah, he was talking very much about it being an organ of perception and how we also pick up electrical fields and things like that. But it's like the heart has its own awareness, its own knowledge. When we're in a room, there's a sense that we have about people and their energies that I think is more coming from the heart and the body necessarily than from our thinking minds, even though we may be clocking them up, analysing them and seeing things about them. But there's a much more instinctual level where we just know, our heart knows. And that sense of that resistance actually doesn't really work. That if we want to free ourselves, liberate ourselves, we really need to turn towards it and allow ourselves to fully feel a feeling, let it be really known, experience in the body, in our heart, in our minds, for that letting go to occur. Yeah. And that grounding in the body and the world, and that openness to the world. So there's like contradiction between like being really grounded and being open and open to the sky, and our hearts being open, more spacious. And also very much that idea of stopping. We're just trying to stop, he said at one point. Which to me very much links up into, well, there's certain schools where they talk about the path just in terms of stopping and seeing, or stopping and realizing, and what is it we're trying to stop. Parmana brought up the story of the encounter the Buddha had with Angulimala, and how he was trying to chase after him and he wanted to kill him and he couldn't ever reach him, and he was calling after the Buddha, stop, stop, and the Buddha said, I have stopped, It's you who haven't stopped. And very much that idea of stopping repeating all our patterns, stopping that, reinforcing that separation, our egoistic sense of self, the way we fabricate, the way we proliferate a whole lot of things out of our experience. But that's easier said than done, isn't it? But I think very much the idea of just being open to our experience, whatever's happening, still being very based in the body, very grounded in the body, that relaxation, that openness, and not trying so hard, not trying to make things happen, that sort of dualistic way that we approach the whole of life actually, but very much, well, he talked a bit about how sometimes craving can take the form of us sort of wanting to progress spiritually, a kind of subtle thing, and I think there is that, and I think craving and aversion can get hidden in that, you know, the desire to transform ourselves can mask actually an underlying feeling that we're not okay as we are. And I think, you know, there's that danger of sort of spiritual bypassing, of wanting to be a certain way without actually allowing ourselves to be who and how we are, and to explore that and to integrate all of that. So that's one reason actually why I was drawn to bringing in Padmasambhava a bit more. I know I did a little quote from him before, but he's got this magical, mystical quality to him, a lot of transformation, but very much one of the things that I've always loved about him is the story about him being invited when they're trying to bring Buddhism to Tibet and build the temple, that each night the foundations and the building get knocked down by the local spirits and deities and gods, and the demons, we're told. So that when the first thing that Padmasambhava does is he goes down into the underworld and he converts all the demons. And actually, if we don't do that work, we don't have that grounding, we don't go sure sort of descent. Um,
I can still see the
oh, here
chat.
it's back, yeah.
Just going to say, Bodhilili, we missed probably the last 3 minutes or so of what you were saying there, because it pretty much froze.
Right.
So sorry about that. Don't know, Sangadar, if you can go and check out the connection on the building, but I don't know if you want to rewind yourself, Bodhilili, and see pick up a thread.
Well, I think I was just trying to kind of create a little bit of context for the first part of this evening, where we're just going to be doing sort of just sitting, but I'm going to be dropping in just one-liners from Padmasambhava, because I think, well, I've certainly been finding, you know, his teachings and these particular things helpful, reflecting on my own practice. But also that context. I mean, he's part of the family, the Lotus family that Amitabha is the head of compassion. and we will be spending more time with Amitabha later on, but I wanted to just start off with some quiet practice, not led, but just things to reflect on if you feel like reflecting on them. So if you just want to get into your meditation posture, and maybe what we'll do for this first part of the evening, we're going to start off with the Padmasambhava mantra we had in the puja yesterday, and then when that fades away, we'll have a period of an open sit, and you can do what you like, but in the middle of it I will just drop in these one-line pieces of guidance from Padmasambhava, and if you want to let that reverberate in your psyche or your body and see what effect it has, do feel free, and if you want to stay with your own experience and ignore it, feel free to do that. And at the end we'll also end with another different Padmasambhava mantra. Om Ahong Vajraguru Padmasiddhi Hong. Om Ahong Vajraguru Padmasiddhi Hong. Om Ahong Vajraguru Padmasiddhi Hong. Om Ahong Padmasiddhi Hong. Om Ahong Vajraguru 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 Padmasiddhi Hong. Disposing yourself to be physically calm, as in an empty house, the raindrops slowly gather. Relax. Do not force your mind or body. Relax. Do not force your mind or body. Saying there are obstacles will get you nowhere. Do what you can at the time. Saying there are obstacles will get you nowhere. Do what you can at the time. Since allowing thoughts to be just as they are, without trying to do anything about them, is sufficient, how can you say that you are not able to do anything with regard to them? During the period of meditation, there is not anything. It is simply open.
flames. Om Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum. 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 Om Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hum.
So that marks the end of the first part of the evening. And we'll just have a 5-minute leg stretch before we move into a bit more focusing on Amitabha and some invoking him, chanting his mantra, a bit more devotional practice towards him, but for giving a bit of context first about why, and linking Padmasambhava and Amitabha. Hi, so welcome back. And I was thinking, why did I feel I wanted to bring in Padmasambhava as well as Amitabha today? Because I was just thinking I'd just do Amitabha. But I think there's something about the mysterious, magical quality of him, the transformations, and also that descent into the underworld, converting the demons, freeing the jewels that they're guarding, that spoke to me on a sort of not such a conscious level, but in terms of it related to some of what Paramananda was talking about. And then with Amitabha, well, because Paramananda was talking so much about the heart and kindness and love, and also in the meditations he led, there was one where he was very much encouraging us to be aware of the body, but also the earth below, right down miles below into the molten metallic core of the earth, a fiery molten center of the earth. But also he had a lot of imagery around the opening up the skull, almost translucent into the sky, and letting the light of the sun and just the light permeate our skulls, come within us. So of course Amitabha is, well, his name is Infinite Light, and he's very much associated with infinite light, infinite love and compassion, and his element is fire. So all that imagery of the fire and the moltenness very much brought him to mind for me. And also all that sort of like exploration around craving, and well, he helps us to transform the poison of craving, and yeah, especially with that pointing out that we can subtly, maybe our spiritual practice or whatever, that can be a form of craving, accumulating progress, accumulating particular experiences, or desiring them along the way. And it's not to say that there aren't certain experiences that we, in a way, are trying to create the conditions. We are trying to. It's difficult with language, isn't it? On the one hand, we're not trying to force anything to happen, but there is an implicit sense that actually there are states that are more skillful, that are more desirable actually in terms of our practice. And as it depends on our relationship to that. If we're grasping after them, craving on them, thinking a bit about our attainment and making it me and mine, that ego appropriating that experience or our insights, or that's when it can be a bit problematic. But there's also that sense that we are drawn to things that are meaningful, that are true, that are beautiful, that are valuable, like the Dharma. And that's Shraddha, isn't it? There's something in us that's resonating with something of meaning, something of the Buddha's teaching resonates in us, otherwise why would we be here? And whether we've responded through images of the Buddha, stories about the Buddha, through teachings of the Buddha, practices that he's given us, or being around people who have been practicing and they communicate something of the Buddha. But also, like in our imaginations, Paramahansa also referred to the bliss body, and that's sort of not quite the ultimate reality, but it's also not quite maybe the more mundane material. But of course, the two are very linked. So the Sambhogakaya and all these archetypal Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and all the ways that they that we respond to them on a sort of symbolic, archetypal level, unconscious level sometimes. Something resonates with our psyche, our body, our heart, the image, the sound of a mantra, some of the symbolism associated with them. That's a whole different way of following the path and practicing, and bringing in more devotional side alongside that, which I think really supports us and helps us to enrich our practice. Sometimes we can just get into different lists, you know, Eightfold Path, the Threefold Path, the Four Noble Paths, the Five Spiritual Faculties, the Seven Enlightenment Factors. There's loads and loads of lists, and they're really helpful. But for me, there's something about surrender, you know, that ego that wants to be in control of everything, and surrendering that through devotional practice. There's a letting go there to something higher that we're responding to on a sort of faith level. And that maybe when we're doing that practice, it's not using our cognitive mind or analytic mind in the same kind of way. There's a opening to something bigger in our mind and our consciousness, and we often connect to something bigger as well when we're doing it, particularly when we're doing things collectively. And I think even over virtual space, we can have that sense of a shared practice together. So, yes, I mean, Amitabha and the heart and the colour red, and very much associated with beauty, beauty and his time of day, the setting sun. And it's quite interesting because he's associated with the sun and with fire, so he's a solar figure, and they're usually quite outward. But he's also the Buddha of meditation, which is very much inward, so he's bringing again those two worlds, the outer, the inner, together. And that love, you know, that discriminating wisdom, but that love that he has for all beings. So when we're trying to cultivate a kind of internal voice, sometimes it feels helpful to have somebody that we think is out there also being kind, accepting to us, and if it helps you to imagine Amitabha there, looking down with his love, with his light, being there, listening when you're sort of chanting his mantra, connecting with him and his qualities. Well, if that helps, why not just do it? I spent a lot of time trying to think whether the Buddhas were real or not real, and was it my psyche or not, and all that, the inner or outer. I think for me they're real, and it doesn't really matter all the other stuff. And there's something about just opening your heart, opening your mind, being receptive to the possibility and to the qualities that they embody, and that we also embody. So in opening to them, we're kind of opening to the qualities within us, the Buddha within us. Paramahansa was talking a lot about opening, and the heart opening, and opening to the world, and receiving the world through the heart as well. Anyway, sorry, got a little bit off topic, but anyway, yes, so what we're going to do is we're going to invoke Amitabha. I'm going to read Invocation by Satyanama, and then we're going to chant his mantra, and then we're going to have a period of metta practice And trying to do that in a sort of more receptive way. Yeah, so often when we're doing Metta Bhavana, we've been taught to do that very much in a particular structure, particular way, and it's easy to think that we have to sort of like generate this metta from nowhere or from outside of us. And then when we've done that, maybe see if we can give it away. That was kind of a little bit how I was taught it, and I think it can create a lot of problems for people in really engaging with the metta practice. There's so many people that end up feeling that if they're not feeling metta during the practice, to the people that they bring to mind, that they're failing in some kind of way. So we're not necessarily actually going to do the formal metta practice. I'm going to just leave it a bit more open. But with that invitation to just bring kindness and metta to whatever is arising in your experience. So metta towards yourself, your body, your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts, and your responses, reactions when you bring other people to mind. And not feeling that you have to do anything, but just be open. Yeah. So the metta practice, I'll ring the bell to start it and end it, but again I'm not going to lead it, but I'm just going to encourage you to just let your mind alight on whoever comes to mind. You don't have to worry about what stage they belong to. Are they a friend? You can only have one friend. Just let the mind come and go, a bit like a butterfly alighting on a person, staying there as long as it wants, then moving on, maybe coming back, so kind of like butterfly style metta. And then at the end of the practice, we'll start and we'll end with the Maitri mantra, which obviously is Sanskrit for metta, so we're doing them. End with a practice trying to cultivate, connect with that quality of metta. That may sound all very complicated, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to listen to an invocation of Amitabha mantra, butterfly metta, and then Maitri. Invocation of Amitabha. Turning to the west and the rays of the setting sun, I bow to the ruby red light that is the Buddha Amitabha. Lover of light, you sit on a rich red lotus, floating on the ocean of existence. Your hands touch together in your lap, a soft red lotus growing between them. You are deep in meditation, completely at peace with yourself. Rich red light emanates from every pore of your skin. Your red robes are embroidered with gold. Soft red light and a rainbow surround you. You are the rich red light of the setting sun, sinking into the ocean of existence, your rays extending across the sea to meet us. With your light comes your love. a warm and passionate love for all that lives, fusing all things, nourishing and healing, bringing back to life the hurt and wounded. The red light washes over us, melting the ice of our hearts. Yet always you are deep in meditation, your energy drawn inwards, moving from the senses to the richness of your inner world. From this wholeness and contentment, your love shines out, and the lotus growing in your hands, each red petal slowly opening and emanating light. This lotus echoes the growth in us of our own inner life, our own aspirations, the gentle warming and unfolding of our own hearts. Lover of light, your discriminating vision sees each person exactly as they are, loves each one according to their need. You perceive clearly the inner nature of all things with the eye of reality, beneath the form to the thing itself. O Amitabha, you are the fire element, the spark of life, the warmth and heat that is life itself. Let the fires of your love burn brightly for all to see. O Amitabha, help us to overcome our selfish greed, to see clearly what we really need. Help us to become content with what we already have and be happy wherever we are. O Amitabha, help us to come alive to a world beyond the senses. Help us to experience the joy of meditation, the ever-renewing energies of our own minds. Help us to enter Sukhavati, the blissful land of your light, the blissful land of your love. Om Amideva Hri. 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 Om
Amidevai. Om Amidevai. Om Amidevai. Om Amidevai. Maitri Swaha. Om Maitri, Maitri, 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 Maitri Swaha. Maitri, Maitri Swaha. Om Maitri, Maitri, Maitri Swaha. Om Maitri, Maitri, Maitri Swaha. Om
Okay, so we've come to the end of this evening. Thank you very much, and Paman will be back at 9 o'clock tomorrow.